Welcome to part 2 of the Doukhobor Life in Canada video series. Привет! Меня зовут Vera Malachova. Hello, my name is Faith Malakov. I'm a third-generation Canadian Doukhobor.
My name is Ryan Duchak. I am of Doukhobor descent, and I am the current museum director at the Doukhobor Discovery Centre in Castlegar, British Columbia.
We will be presenting this next series in 4 videos. The first video will address the early Doukhobor settlements in Saskatchewan. The second video will address the mass pilgrimage in 1902 and confiscation of Doukhobor lands in Saskatchewan. The third video will cover the 1908 migration and settlement of the Christian Community of Universal Brotherhood in British Columbia, known as the CCUB. The fourth video addresses the challenges the CCUB faced in relation to BC's governmental expectations. We will also include the end of an era, with the death of beloved leader Peter Vasilyevich Verygin in 1924. He was affectionately known as Peter the Lordly, or in Russian, Господний.
We will continue on from the first series when Doukhobor settled on the prairies and faced hardships common for new immigrants. For example, breaking new land, building homesteads, and establishing financial means to support their communities.
Due to Canada's need for capable farmers in the early 1900s, the federal government provided Doukhobors with free farmland in present-day Saskatchewan. However, unbeknownst to the Doukhobors, the free farmland came with stipulations under the Homestead Act, namely, sign for the lands individually, meet land cultivation requirements, and take the oath of allegiance to the British Crown.
Let's look at the geography in which Doukhobors established their villages on the prairies. Ultimately, the Doukhobors established 3 colonies, mostly within land reserved for them by the Canadian government. The North and South colonies were situated in the eastern half of Saskatchewan, near the towns of Pelly, Kenora, Kamsack, and the city of Yorkton. The South colony also contained some annexed land, where Doukhobors constructed and lived in villages near Good Spirit Lake. The third colony, commonly known as the Saskatchewan colony or the Prince Albert colony, was situated more within the central part of present-day Saskatchewan, northeast of Saskatoon, near the current village of Blaine Lake and the town of Langham. Altogether, the Doukhobors established 61 villages in the 3 colonies.
Motivated by their faith and communal values, they demonstrated remarkable determination, skill, and hard work in creating sustainable communities based on their collective efforts. While loyal to their spiritual values, they were willing to work hard for the benefit of all of their people in the new land. However, they also faced some unexpected pressures imposed upon them by Canada's government, based on a colonial political system. Throughout this series, a significant thread of framework that informed several aspects of Doukhobor history in Canada was the impact of colonialism and the government's expectation for conformity. Indigenous peoples were steadily being displaced from their lands appropriated to make room for European settlers, including Doukhobors. Canada's government intended that the Doukhobor immigrants would develop the lands they were allotted in present-day Saskatchewan, which was identified as Northwest Territories until 1905. Canada's government also expected the Doukhobors would eventually accept Anglo-Canadian norms, including the English language and individualism, to fully contribute to the social, cultural, and economic development of Canada, namely, to fit into Canadian society as productive citizens.
The Doukhobors anticipated their life in Canada would be one of freedom, to live according to their beliefs and practices. They trusted it would be their promised land, that they would be able to settle down exactly the way they wanted, and that they would be absolutely free from human laws as they called government laws. In reality, this was not the case. Due to the Doukhobors' need for a new home, because of persecution inflicted upon them by the Tsarist government in Russia, and Canada's need for capable farmers, agreements between Doukhobors and the Canadian government were made in haste. This raised misunderstandings. Certain concessions were granted to the Doukhobors prior to their arrival in Canada, including an exemption from military service. Doukhobors also had been granted approval to hold their lands in common, in accordance with the Hamlet Clause in the Homestead Act formulated in 1898. Yet, Canada's government and English-speaking Canadians generally assumed that Doukhobors would eventually accept Canadian requirements. They were expected to hold their lands individually in accordance with the Homestead Act, commit to taking the oath of allegiance to the British Crown, as well as submit vital statistics about their families, including births, deaths, and marriages.
Doukhobors that left Russia had faced severe persecution by the Tsarist government due to their religious and spiritual practices. Reminiscent of the intolerance they experienced in Russia, they perceived the same would occur in Canada. This increased their suspicion of the Canadian government. In many ways, they were not wrong.
According to the Doukhobors, the divine is in each and every person. No person could be above another. Therefore, declaring allegiance to a monarch was not possible. The Doukhobors also worried that such an oath may leave them vulnerable to military service. They feared that providing vital statistic information, such as marriages and deaths, only tied people to the authorities. The government had no business in the affairs of Doukhobor families. The Doukhobors considered the land to be God's land. This meant they could not own the land, but only tend to the land as stewards.
As such, most Doukhobors did not want to submit to these rules by the Canadian government. The issue of land ownership brought tensions and controversy within the Doukhobor communities. Further tension was perpetuated by an increase of settlers coming to the prairies from places such as Ontario and Western Europe. They complained about the concessions granted to Doukhobors. Consequently, more pressure was placed on Canada's government to deal with the challenges regarding Doukhobor land ownership and the refusal by many to take the oath of allegiance.
The government dealt with the challenges in 1907 by taking back the land that had been allocated to the Doukhobors and allowing for a significant land grab by other settlers anxious for land. This led to a mass exodus of Doukhobors from the prairies to British Columbia, where they chose to maintain their communal way of life. This was not the action of all Doukhobors. Some Doukhobors, perhaps due to their different ideas of communal living structures, disagreements with Verrigan's communal vision, or perceived social and economic benefits, were more inclined to living independently, all while maintaining the key aspects of Doukhobor culture and religion. Regardless of these divisions, each direction was legitimate, yet in no easy way.
We will look into the development of the three primary Doukhobor groups: the Christian Community of Universal Brotherhood, CCUB, commonly known as the Community Doukhobors, Independent Doukhobors, and the Sons of Freedom Doukhobors. Our Doukhobor heritage is derived from a diversity of locations and peoples across Russia, who arrived together in Canada. Like a body of water connecting diverse streams, each group continues to have their unique experiences, perspectives, and practices. With openness and willingness to learn from each group, we see the collective potential and possibilities of Doukhobors coming together in respect and understanding. The following 4 videos will introduce each stream, emphasizing the complexity of their lives and their unique differences as well as common threads.
Братский союз, наш девиз боевой. В нашей борьбе против мира